You voted, huh? At least those in the States. Whoever it is that you voted for, was it out of your own free will? Or was it some invisible force nudging you toward that choice? This seemingly small decision opens up a big question. Are your decisions truly yours to make? Or are they a series of responses predetermined by your brain, your environment, or even an algorithm? And this applies not just to casting votes, but every small decision that you take. Stick with me to the end, because this might change how you see every decision you make. Imagine for a second that every choice you think you're making is being heavily influenced without you even realizing it. Seems a bit unsettling, right? Well, scientists have spent decades trying to figure this out, and their findings are both fascinating and, frankly, kind of disturbing. But before that, let's test this out right now. I want you to think of a random number between 1 and 10. Now here's the twist. Were you really free to pick any number, or did your mind gravitate toward a certain number because of factors like social conditioning or even my tone of voice? Studies have shown that certain numbers, like 7, are chosen more often due to cultural factors or subtle psychological influences. If you thought of 7, was that really a free choice? This might feel small, but it's a peek into the subtle ways your brain might be steering your choices. Okay, so now back to the scientific study I mentioned. This was a groundbreaking experiment conducted in the 1980s by neuroscientist Benjamin Libet. Here's how it worked. Participants were asked to move their finger whenever they felt like it. Simple enough, right? But here's the twist. Libet hooked them up to an EEG machine to measure brain activity, and he also recorded the exact moment they consciously decided to move. What Libet discovered was pretty mind-blowing. He found that brain activity indicating a decision to move actually began a few hundred milliseconds before the participants reported consciously deciding to do so. So, their brains had already made the decision before they were even aware of it. Now think about that for a moment. If your brain is deciding to move before you choose to move, are you really in control? This study threw a huge wrench into the concept of free will, suggesting that maybe our conscious mind is just a spectator in decisions already made by our subconscious brain. To see if you can notice this delay, try this activity. Look at a clock with a second hand and decide to raise your hand at a completely random moment. Pay attention to the exact second you decide to do it. Notice how your brain seems to tell you to act before you even make a conscious choice. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? This could be the same subconscious process Libet discovered. Let's go a step further with something called priming. Psychologists have found that subtle cues in our environment can drastically influence our behavior and decisions without us realizing it. Here's a quick example. In a 2006 study, psychologists set up a snack table with either healthy options like fruits and nuts or less healthy ones like chips and candy. They found that simply putting up posters of athletes around the snack table made people more likely to choose the healthy snacks. Without saying a word, just by changing the environment, the researchers were able to nudge people's decisions. So if you think you chose to eat a salad for lunch, it might be that your environment, maybe even something as small as a picture on the wall, was influencing that choice. Do you see how tricky this is getting? If these kinds of nudges can shape our choices, how much of what we decide is actually our own free will? Now let's look at some cutting-edge tech that takes things even further. Neuroscientists have started using advanced brain imaging and AI to predict what people are going to do before they do it. In one experiment, participants were asked to choose between two buttons, and researchers could predict with almost 80% accuracy which button a person would press before they consciously decided. It's like these scientists can look inside someone's mind and predict their future actions. Now, if someone else can predict your choices, can they really be considered free? But hold on. If we say we have no free will, that could lead to some pretty dark implications. Would that mean no one is responsible for their actions? Could we even call ourselves moral beings? Here's a little thought experiment for you. Imagine you're walking down a street and you see someone drop their wallet. You pick it up and decide to return it. Now, was that choice yours? Or was it shaped by how you were raised, social expectations, or some other internal factors? Even though a science questions our sense of free will, philosophers have been debating this issue for centuries. Some argue for determinism, the idea that everything is predetermined by a chain of prior causes. According to determinists, our choices are just reactions to a sequence of prior events. Others argue for compatibilism, which suggests that free will and determinism can coexist. They say that even if external factors influence us, we still have some level of freedom in how we respond. So maybe we're not completely free, but we're also not fully controlled. And then there's libertarian free will, which posits that humans have full, independent control over their actions. It's a comforting view, but modern research is making this idea harder to support. What about when you act against those influences? Let's say you usually go to bed early, but one night you stay up just to binge watch a show. Could that be evidence that we do have free will? Or is it just another illusion? If free will is in fact limited, or even an illusion, it raises big questions. Are our goals, our careers, our relationships all just a product of biological and environmental influences we don't control? Or is there some unique spark of agency that's truly ours? Here's something to think about. Even if free will is an illusion, could it be a necessary one? Some scientists and philosophers suggest that believing in free will helps us function and find meaning. Maybe knowing that we think we have choices is enough to give us purpose, even if the actual science doesn't fully support it. So, what do you think? Are we free agents in control of our destiny, or are we just complex puppets responding to unseen forces? Let us know in the comments below if you believe in free will, or if you think we're all just following a script written by biology and environment. And hey, whether it was free will or not that led you here, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more mind-bending content like this. Until next time, keep questioning reality, because it might be a lot stranger than we think.